Record.
Anyways. Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to week 8. We're 2/3 of the way there. That's so crazy. But today we'll be talking about advanced prototyping. Here's all the things we're going to be talking about. Basically, we'll be recapping the basic prototyping lecture, but today we'll be focusing on a few more advanced features, including some Figma updates from this year. We got a few fun demos, and then we'll wrap up. But hopefully it will be a quick lecture as always. So here's attendance. The password is cat. Just cat. Cat if you're watching the recording. Okay, and then if you want the slide deck link, recommend you copy it so you can follow along with the demo, but of course it's optional. But here's that link. Okay, so let's recap prototyping and what it's used for. So what is prototyping? Prototyping is a process of turning your design concepts, so your screens, assets, anything into tangible forms through these arrows. So you can also test these forms to reveal insights. And within Figma, prototyping allows you to demonstrate how interfaces will behave and will account for all the different ways users can interact with your prototype. So at the most atomic level, it's essentially forming connections within from point A to point B. And then, of course, you can also have multiple interactions within multiple frames too. To recap the components of a prototyping interaction, first we have a trigger, which is when this interaction will happen. So a common one will be like on click or on drag, but you can also do hover and these other ones as well. After you pick a trigger, next you have action, which is what actually happens. The most common one would be like navigating to somewhere like a different page, but you can also open and close an overlay, scroll somewhere, or even go back to where you came from. And then lastly, we have animations, which determine how the prototype moves from one frame to another. So the default is instant, but usually in design, we like things to have a bit of a smooth transition to kind of mimic like what you naturally see in the world. So dissolve and smart animate, which we'll talk about, are some popular ones, but there's some other ones as well, like move in, move out, push, slide in, slide out. Honestly, the ones at the bottom are pretty similar. So if you want to play around with those, you can see the actual difference. It's just like very, very tiny. So here are the transitions. As you can see, most of them are kind of like smooth and quick, but if you want to make the animation more custom, you can absolutely do that by adjusting like the time or even like how fast or slow a part of the animation moves. All right, so smart animate, making seamless, delightful transitions. So the way smart animate works is it looks for matching layers that exist across multiple frames. And for layers that match between frames, Figma will recognize what changes from frame A to frame B and will automatically apply a transition. So depending on what is changed, sometimes it'll just be like dissolve and it'll like be the same as another interaction. But if it's more complex, it might try to do that for you. If you're using smart animate though, just be aware that sometimes you might not get what you expect. So always double check. And here's a demo of how smart animate looks. As you can see, some of it is dissolved, some of it's like pushing up. So in prototyping, smart animates just from the list of transitions when building it. You can also apply it with other transitions and it will make something more advanced looking. So smart animate can be used to create a lot of different types of animations. Like with everything else in Figma, you can make things as small as like loading sequences, like a loading circle, scrolling, which basically means like while you scroll, things will move in and out of the screen, different touch gestures, drop downs, even just like checking off a checkbox that's also using smart animate. Yeah, and then here are a bunch of examples. This is like the drop down. And then I think this one is the like little scrolling in the loader. Okay, animation properties. So animation, when you think of animation, you might think of like Pixar movies or those YouTube animators. But basically animation is the art of like transforming these different drawings into frames and then making something that moves from these like static pictures. And the actual animation is defining like what happens from like contact to load to passing to high in contact. And it creates like this walking little animation at the end. So animation can also be very complex to simulate lifelike movement. So this ball, you see it's going up and down, but if you actually break it out, break down the movement, there are some parts where the ball is going down faster because of gravity. It's like, and then it's going back up slower, but you can see it's not just a linear movement. There's like some sort of like bounce. So in traditional animation, each keyframe has to be drawn out and specified. So this one bouncing ball is like 24 different frames, which is insane. So there's a lot of budget that goes into those animation movies like Spider-Man and all the Pixar ones. So for this class, just think of animation as the evolution of state over time. So seeing how an object transforms via scale, rotation, color, etc., will help us determine which frames we need to create for whatever animation we want to use. So the next few slides are just examples of what these simple animations look like. Thankfully for like user interface design, the animations are pretty simple. Here you can see there's this ball just growing in and out, or it was growing in and out. Here, if you have two frames with different positions, the Smart Animate will create this slider looking thing. It also deals with opacity as well. So we see this empty glass to this full glass of water, and this animation will make it more opaque. And then rotation, I feel like this is the one I least expected. Like I saw this and I was like, what is that? I did not expect it, but it looks kind of cool. But I also didn't realize before this class you could rotate with Smart Animate. Here is fill. It kind of looks like that like course catalog thing on Berkeley Time where the graphs change and the color changes too. Okay, so advanced prototyping. This is putting transitions and smart animation together. So once again, to activate Smart Animate, you just go into the right panel under prototype, and then on interactions, you'll see, I think it's like where it says on click, you can select Smart Animate from there. But here you can see this person is dragging from the object to the frame, and then the frame like object to the frame, like both ways. Okay, yeah, so if you've tricked Smart Animate in your prototype tab, this is what it should look like. You can see that even though there is Smart Animate, you can control the animation. So Smart Animate basically picks the transition for you, but you can control how that transition plays out. So here they're using this easing function, and then the default time of 300 milliseconds. And here it's showing how you can combine transitions with Smart Animate. Note that this only works with layers that make sure your layers are like properly named for this. Otherwise, it's going to end up pretty funky and not good. But here you can see how the person wants this frame to like push in, but then you can also Smart Animate matching layers within your two frames. So if it sounds like a lot, try it with your like, I guess your midterm project's done, but with your final project, and you'll see some cool stuff happen. Yeah, so this is again a reminder to keep track of your layer names, otherwise you might get some funky stuff. So here is what Smart Animate looks like here. you'll notice how when the person goes to different pages, this little animation will play on the navigation bar. So this is what Smart Animate, but then the actual screens moving is just the push transition. All right, I'll hand it off to Claire for the animation demo. Okay. Wait, is it this one? I think so. Oh, someone wants to view. Yes. Okay. All right, so here we have 3 separate examples. They get more and more complex. They are already done for you, but I'll just redo it just to demonstrate. But just to like see what it looks like already before we do it. Hopefully that wants to load. Basically the Smart Animate makes it look like it's not just like one frame to another, but it like formulates all the frames in between your first frame and your second frame for you. So it's like a lot easier to do more complex animations this way, just because it does like the in-between frames for you, so you don't have to do all of them. So looking at how we did this, so there's one interaction going from the first frame to the second one. It's going to be this delay one, and then the second one is going to be going from the second one back to the first one, just so it's like a circular motion, so it keeps going. And we set it to delay because we wanted to automatically play. And you don't have to like interact with it, and it plays by itself, but I'll just redo it for you just so we know what this looks like. So with this first frame selected, you're going to see this little circle with a plus icon in the middle. And then if you just click and drag this entire frame to the second one, this pop-up is going to show up. And then since you want it to Smart Animate, you can keep it to navigate to because you do want the frame to transition to the other frame, music 2, from music 1 to music 2. But you're going to change this instant to the third option on this drop-down bar of Smart Animate. And then when that happens, it's going to give you the option. Oh, wait, let me see. Yeah. It's going to give you an option as to like how you want it to look. So it's ease out right now. Yeah, and then we can keep it there. And then the time is 300 milliseconds, and we can also keep that there. Wait. Oh, I think it's quick. Oh, okay. Yes, and then to change it to on delay instead of on click because you want it to be instant, you're just gonna go to the very top and then click on the on click, and then it's gonna give you all these options. Yeah, and then you want to change it to, oh, why can't you do after delay? Let me see. Let me just. It's a big question. Okay. It might already have a delay on the right. It doesn't. Oh. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Okay. I think. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Okay, there we go. Okay, so basically, since you want it to be a delay, you have to set the I'm pretty sure you have to set
two interactions. You have to set it so the click doesn't do anything, and then you have to do the after delay, and then it changes to the smart animate. Yes. Sorry. Okay, and then the other two should be the same. If you open the thing, there has to be two interactions. So the first one, you have to set the click to none, and then the second interaction to be the delay one. So after doing that, you can also change the speed of how fast you want your animation to look. So if we preview this one, they look like this right now. But if we change like how fast it moves, so let's make this like, oh, not that, like this, update, and then we preview it again. Now it's like a different speed of how they're moving. Okay, yeah. And then this one should be the same thing where all four of these screens smart animate into each other. So it's the same function as to the on delay command where you have to do two. Yeah, the on delay one where you set it so it automatically goes, and then the other one where it's click and then nothing. Okay. Okay, and then we also have another demo where it's a little more clear as to what we can use the smart animate for in terms of like an actual project. So we just showed you like actual animation demo, but if you want to use it in like say a UI project or something where you're redesigning an app or a website, there's also functions with that too. Mainly when you're transitioning between your screens. So here we have 4 screens on the page. So it's going to be 4 iPhone screens. It's going to be like this navigation destination page, your bookmark page, and then you see here they want you to make it so that you can delete a restaurant from the bookmark section and then undo it. So this top one should already be prototyped, but we are going to prototype the bottom row just to see how it works. So if we go into the prototype panel, you see there's already a flow here, so I don't need to set a flow. But since you want to move from this destinations page to this bookmark page, you see the bookmark page has this bookmark icon on the right-hand side. So if you look at the destinations page, there's the same bookmark icon right here at the very bottom in the navigation bar. So we want to click that icon specifically and then click and drag the interaction so it goes to the entire other screen. And then for this, we want to navigate to and let's say we're going to do push just so it's a little more interesting to see how it changes from this destination screen to the bookmark screen. And because it's such a big change, we're not going to do smart animate from this section because it makes less sense. But once we're in this section and we want to make this screen go into this screen, since these screens are so similar and you're doing the function on the screen, you're not changing like the entire page, we can use smart animate in this section. So if we click on this gather restaurant section, because that's the one you want to delete, if you look at the next screen that we're animating into, if you click and drag this little node right here from this page to the entire next page, this is going to pop up for you. And then since as you can kind of like assume from what they designed for you on the thing, it's not like a click interaction that they want to use for deleting. It's like a swipe interaction, since there's like the right hand delete bar on the right hand side that shows up. So we want to change the on click to on drag. So that makes it so that's the function that needs to trigger the interaction. And then we are going to click animate matching layers. So it will smart animate. Oh, yeah. And then we can change the animation section to the smart animate section. And then I think these look okay. If you want to like play around with how it smart animates into each other, that's fine too. But these default settings should work for what we're doing right now. Yeah. And then, oh, also on this page, since we want to make this like an interactive prototype, we can also animate it so it goes back to the destination page. So if you click back on this little navigation icon right here, and then you just click and drag out the node back to the original screen. We can just do on click, that works. And then we don't want to smart animate, so we'll have let's do like push, so it's once again a little more interesting. And then we're going to click animate matching layers so it matches. Okay, and then going back to this screen, we should be done with everything that you can do here functionally. And then yeah, okay, and then so since now we're on this screen, since we just prototyped the on drag function, if we want to continue, wait, let me see if they did. Okay, so clicking this, you don't have to click this because it's like a thing that shows up, but you don't actually have to click the red trash can if you're just dragging it out. So we're just gonna click the original photo again, and then we're gonna press and drag the node to the final screen, and then we're gonna change it from, oh, that's on click is fine. But then we're gonna change it to smart animate again, so it's like a smooth transition. It's not just like a really jerky back and forth. Okay, and then once we get to this final screen, since they have this undo button that they want us to work with, we are just gonna click the undo button, the whole thing, and then you're just gonna click and drag the node back to this original screen where the gather restaurant is still there. So you just undid the function that you just animated basically. And then so on click should be fine. Let's not do smart animate. Let's do like, actually no, we can do smart animate. And then the time section should be fine for that too. Just check. Okay. Okay, and then so if we want to preview all the interactions that we just did, if we open the screen right here, oh, I can't see this. Okay, we're gonna click on this bookmark thing, and then it pushes the page to the bookmark page. And then if we click on the navigation bar, we can go back to the navigation to the destination section. But now let's test out like the drag function that we just did. So if we so I just like clicked and dragged this gather restaurant section, and it appears like this. And then if you want to keep dragging it, oh no, okay, one second. Oh, okay, my bad. Okay, so this is not on click, my bad. It's supposed to be mouse leave because you're letting go of the drag function. That's my bad, I'm sorry. So if we switch it to mouse leave, so we just click and drag, right? And then once your mouse leaves the function, the whole thing should disappear. So if we undo that, we can see that again. If you just click and drag this restaurant section, and then you let go of the thing, the whole section is going to disappear because it deleted. Yeah. Okay, and then so now that is like a functioning prototype, which works a lot smoother than if you just use like the regular prototyping functions. Okay. All right, so now we are going to go back to the lecture. Okay. Yes, so renaming layers. So especially when you're using smart animate, you have to make sure your layer names match. Just because the way smart animate works, it is really reliant on how you name the layers and the hierarchy of the layers. So now it's like extra important to pay attention to how you do that in your tabs. So fortunately, there's actually an easy way to rename your layers, which we will go over right now. So you can view and update your layer names using the layers panel in the left sidebar, which you might already know already. And then by right-clicking on the layers you want to rename and then choosing rename, which is also Control or Command R on your keyboard, you can rename every layer to the exact same name or add a suffix and or prefix. So this is helpful for like mass renaming a lot of layers that are like similar or the same, just to make it so that you can apply the prototyping functions to them. And then to view your matching layers, you can see what layers or objects that exist in other frames or parts of your file. to go to your prototype panel, and then you hover over any object or layer in the frame, and then Figma will highlight other layers in other frames that exist in. And this is really useful for debugging like why your smart animation might be really glitchy or like not working out, and if it doesn't look like how you want it to look. Okay, so animation in UX, which is like a different way to use animations. So animation should remain functional and serve a purpose to aid the user in whatever thing you're designing and not detract from their focus. So it should be establishing well thought out hierarchy and relationships between groups of information. So don't use like excessive animation if it's like distracting and not helpful to the actual usability of what you're designing. And then here is like some an example of 12 principles of UX in motion. So animation has to feel natural, similar to how we model animate objects. So to a certain extent, animations actually follow the rules of physics with weight and speed, and you can use the Bezier curves to achieve this effect. So a good way to indicate to the user an action has been performed is to use an animation. So for example, if you have a list of posts that have been loading, sliding up can help the user understand to swipe to see more. And animations that have practical developments too, such as asynchronous loading times of information. And also like the demo that we just did, it helps the user understand that you did actually delete the restaurant and it didn't just like magically delete for no reason. So case 2, subtlety. Again, an animation is one that the users don't even tend to notice. The purpose of this sort of information is to help the user achieve a specific objective in like a simple, intuitive manner, and animation should not be at like the forefront of the visual experience. Like it's just the point should still be the interaction and not like the actual animation itself. So the third case is going to be orientation. So it's often practical to think of your screens taking on 2D space like your prototype framings in your Figma file. Animations should provide a consistent sense of spatial orientation to make applications easily navigable. So animations should be part of your prototyping process. Understanding how information flows and transitions from one section to another is an important factor to UX and content-driven design. Okay, and then so to recap, I know we went over variables like a while ago. I think it was like week 3, really briefly, but just to review what they're for. Variables are reusable definitions like styles that can be assigned to various design attributes like color, numbers, and strings. However, unlike styles, variables can switch between definitions depending on the theme that is applied. So as you see in the image on the left-hand side, if you guys remember like the light mode, dark mode demo that we did a while ago, that's like referencing what variables are used for. And then so the 4 variable types as a refresher, there's color, number, string, and Boolean, and variables can be applied to layers and objects using fields in the right sidebar. So color is going to control the color. Number is going to control the numbers. So like, let's say the corner radius or like the spacing. String is going to be all your text, and then Boolean is like toggle visibility of things. Okay, so applying variables. Variables are actually stored locally or in your library. So if you want to apply a variable, you can start by selecting a layer or an object on the canvas. And then depending on what kind of variable you're using, you'll be applied to different parts of the right-hand panel. So if you're applying a Boolean variable, you can right-click on the visibility icon inside the layer section. So if you're doing number or string variables, you can click on the variable icon, which is like, is that a pentagon? The shape with a dot in the middle of it, or open the drop-down menu of the relevant field to apply it. And then for color variables, you can click on the style icon in the relevant color field. Okay, we're gonna do prototyping with variables. Don't be intimidated. This is like a little bit more complex because it just was released at config and we're not expecting you to know how to do it like in depth, but we want to go over it in class. So this is like a very good image of what prototyping looked like before they implemented variables versus after. So as you can see on the left, there's a lot of screens. There's like 50 different arrows going everywhere. It's like really hard to understand and then click and navigate and see exactly where each interaction is going. And then on the right, there's a lot less screens. And you can see there's only like a few arrows, so you can really control what is happening inside each like interaction that you're prototyping. Okay, so all prototyping interactions have triggers, which is what interaction causes the prototype to advance forward, and then actions, which is what happens as a result of the trigger. So variables actually introduce a new action type where any of the available triggers can update the value of a chosen variable to the value of your choice, which is going to be your set variable. And then we'll demo this after this section. So if this is confusing, don't worry. And then how to add a set variable. If you go to your prototype tab, which is going to be on your right-hand sidebar, you can select your chosen frame and then click on the plus icon to add an interaction. And then after that, you can select your trigger as usual, and then set variable in the action dropdown. And then third, you're going to pick the variable that's going to be modified. And then fourth, you're going to type in the new value you're changing this variable to, or choose an option from the dropdown suggestions. So if you can press enter, and then you can be done. Okay, so we're also going to demo this like after, so don't worry if it's like a little confusing right now. But yeah, so now going over like some functions of prototyping with variables. So the first one is going to be expressions. And expressions are operations like mathematical functions involving values, so variable or literal, which can be used to generate dynamic variables. So you can write expressions directly inside the fields of the interaction model using the supported syntax rules, or you can use the drop-down selection picker to choose from suggested variables and operations. Yeah, so if you see on the right-hand screen here, there's like 3 on-click prototype actions happening. It's going from, if you see like it might be a little hard to see, but there's like a little plus icon. So there's basically like several actions happening inside this one interaction that they prototyped. So you can basically stack them. Okay, and then the second one is going to be conditionals. And conditional logic allows you to define different outputs depending on user inputs. So for example, only enabling a button if all fields are correctly filled, or showing an overlay if a user has not selected an option. So in order to apply conditional logic to a prototyping action, you can select the new action type conditional, and conditionals follow the format of if/else. So meaning if some condition is met, then an action is taken, and else another action is taken. So once again, it's kind of like, I guess, like writing equations to see like when a prototyping interaction would happen and when it would not, and like what would happen after that. Okay, so variable modes. So in the context of prototyping, you can think of modes as groups of values for the same variable. The different mode values can be used in prototyping actions for easier customization. So we did this with the light and dark mode, if you remember, referencing back to the past demo. So some ways to use variable modes is you can set mode values based on context, so using multiple modes to customize your variable values without needing to edit or create new interactions. You can also use modes and expressions, which uses the values of different modes to build interactions and perform calculations. Okay, demo time. Going back to the lecture slides, it should be in the same section here. I put it at the bottom, so it's just gonna be this one slide, just because I know we went over like several of these things. These are like a little more complicated, and we didn't want to introduce it for an intro class because it's kind of a lot to expect you guys to learn, especially so close to the final. So don't be too stressed out if you guys don't like completely understand what that is, because it's okay. All right, so looking at this right here, we're going to basically create a prototype where the text is going to change based on the picture that you guys click. So if you see here, there's 2 pictures, a picture of cherries and then a picture of pears. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new string variable called selected item with the value of empty. So once again, to create a variable, if we have nothing selected here, you see here on the design panel on the right-hand sidebar, there's a section that says local variables, and there's this little icon that says open variables. So we're going to click open variables. Oh, I'm going to delete this. So we are going to create a variable. So we're just going to press the big icon in the middle, and then it's going to give you this drop-down panel. And then we're going to click a string because that's the type it wants you to create. And then we're going to name this selected item. And then the value is going to be empty. And then you just press enter and then it should exist already, and then you can close the screen. Okay, so you can apply the variable you just created like just now by clicking into this inside the text section. Oh, it's right here. Okay, yes. So we're gonna click this lorem ipsum that's like already inside the frame for you. And then when you have that selected, if you go into this text section, I thought it was here, but it's actually down here. This little icon right here that says apply a variable, it's like I don't think it's a pentagon. A shape with a dot in the middle, and then we're just gonna click apply variable. And then since we only have one variable in this document, it's easy because there's only one option to select. But I'm gonna click the thing we just made called selected item, and then it's gonna change the text to empty because that's like the information you just stored in that variable. Okay, so then now that we just applied the variable to the text section, we are gonna go into the prototype tab, and then we're gonna select the cherry picture specifically, and then add an interaction called onClick, and then we're gonna set the interaction, oh, it's already here, to onClick. So we're gonna set the interaction to set variable. So instead of like navigate to, which you might be used to doing, we're gonna go all the way down to set variable, and then it's gonna ask you to pick one. So then we're gonna click selected item, and then it's gonna ask you what you want to change this variable to after the click. So because this is a cherry, we're just gonna type cherries. So cherries, and then you can just press enter, and then it should be done. So if you and then you can exit that screen, and then your screen should look like this, where it says set variable, and then your variable is selected, and then it's going to change to this after you click on it. And then we're going to do the same thing for the pear picture. So I'm going to add interaction for on click, and then go to set variable, and then we only have one, and then we're going to change it to pears. Okay. And then so now let's see, spacebar. So now let's make this a little bigger. If I click on this, it's gonna change if you click on the picture of the cherries, it's gonna change the text to cherries. And then if you click on the picture of the pears, it's gonna change the text to pears. So basically it's just like a faster way of doing less frames, and then like a neater way to organize all your actions that like would have been a lot of sub actions originally. Yeah, so you are gonna also go over this in lab. So, and this file is also available for you guys to do. So if you want to like play with it yourself, I would recommend doing that. But yeah, that is a basic overview of the set variable function. Okay. Okay, so now wrapping up for our announcements. Your homework 8 is you're going to actually smart animate a Pokédex. Very fun. So basically you're just going to add a bunch of interactions. So you're building like a functional Pokédex app, and the instructions for this are a little bit longer, but I promise it's worth it. It's really fun. But yeah. And then your lab 8 is going to be a smart home prototyping. So it's more practice with advanced prototyping with like a slightly more practical use case. And then you can use Smart Animate to put together a smart home app with your TA and your team. And then there's also a section in your lab where you're going to use variables, but your TA should help you if you guys get confused. And then the secret word is going to be cat once again. Okay. Yeah. Oh, there's also reading as usual. And then there's such thing as interactive components, which we didn't cover in the lecture, but if you're interested in like prototyping and UX, we highly recommend checking those out. And you can message us in Slack for questions. And also specifically, if you have questions about variables, we will have office hours as usual from 10 to 11. And then we have Angelina, which is someone who's helping us with curriculum, who will also be there to help you answer more questions. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming.